Happy Sunday. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Oh, I forgot my water. Y'all hang on. All right. I don't see folks in the chat yet, but I see some folks are on, so I'm going to give it another minute and then I'll get started. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Absolutely. Welcome. I am giving it a minute for folks to join. Then I'll get started. Or maybe folks are just going to stay in the chat and be quiet. Stay, not join the chat, just be quiet. All right, I'll give it one more minute and I'll get started. Sophia, hey, happy Sunday to you. Good to see you in the chat. All right, so I'll get started. I'm going to introduce myself. I am Jewel Pearson. As I introduce myself, I always say I built a fancy tiny house in 2015 because I don't believe you have to give up luxury to go tiny. And since that time, I have shared my journey to inspire others who are interested in the movement. And I offer coaching, consultations, all of those things to help others in their tiny house journey. And you'll be able to find links to schedule with me in the video description once this video is live. And as I'm doing all of that, I like to serve up a lot of representation along the way. I want us to see ourselves in this movement. I want us to be successful in the movement. I want us to have a space where we can share our wins and our losses and our lessons learned. And if you find this information helpful, the video helpful, I hope you will like it. You'll share it and subscribe to the channel so that you can know when we're live over here and when we're in conversation. So happy Sunday, good people. Let's see. Rosalind, happy Sunday. Hello, Yolanda. Audrey, good afternoon. Glad to see y'all here. All right, so today's discussion is going to be lessons from a skunk. We're going to be talking about vulnerability, resistance, and then living intentionally. Hey, LT. Happy Sunday. So as most of y'all know, or some of y'all know, I have been sharing the ordeal with my little skunk friend. I have a not so nice name for her when I'm not in public spaces. But she showed up two Thursdays ago and brought some children and took up residence under my home. And I saw two babies, but when I first saw her, she was leaving from my house, headed back to where her babies were. So it's possible she had done that run a couple of times and I hadn't seen her. I don't know, but I'm guessing since she was leaving, there was at least 3 babies under there. Good morning. And so I have been sharing the highs and the lows of this ordeal on the socials, and I spoke about it last week. I thought I heard her last week while I was on live, but I actually didn't. It might have just been me in being terrorized with the thoughts of the skunk under the house, but I'm pretty sure she was gone by that time because I went to work on the house right after I was on live here. And so as I thought about the ordeal in dealing with her and how it made me feel and the things I went through, I realized there were some life lessons in there for me. Good morning, Deborah. And I wanted to talk about them. So when she first showed up, so let me go back. I have shared my tiny house. So it's built on wheels. It doesn't have a foundation. So every time I move to a location, I go into the efforts of closing up the bottom, the skirting my house is what it's called. Mobile homes have skirts. They're metal skirts. And so for a tiny house, especially for winterization, and to keep things out, you want to skirt your home. And over the years, I have done various methods. One year, I did just a tarp. Another year, and that lesson, that was my first year. I did just a tarp, and that lesson let me know I never wanted to do that again because it was so ugly. And so, and I also, so with that lesson, once it was over, once spring hit, I couldn't wait to take that tarp off because it was so ugly. And then going forward, I knew I wanted to have a solution that I didn't have to put on and take off as the seasons changed. So I put more effort into it. And so since that time, I've done plywood, OSB. I've done OSB. I've done a combination of OSB and metal. The back of my house is metal. So I paid a guy about 3 years ago out at the farm to install some metal across the back to close that off. And then I did the OSB in the front again. And so coming here, I had to redo the options. And since the house, the level of the house is different. I don't know a better way to say that. So at the other location, my house was kind of on a slope. And so the back of the house was tall. The house was taller. So I couldn't reinstall that metal and the OSB without it being adjusted. So the metal would have needed to be cut down to size. The house is flatter here. It's a more level location. The metal would have needed to be cut down to size. The OSB would have needed to be cut down to size. And I brought all of it over here with the intention of all of the material over here with the intention of doing that. And then I decided I didn't want to hire somebody to cut that metal down again. And I really didn't feel like installing the OSB. By the time, it was a lot more effort than I wanted to put into. It was like redoing it from scratch just to cut it down and to install it. So I also wanted something that was more aesthetically pleasing. And so this time I decided to go with, I had 3 layers. Foam board insulation. So the thick foam board that is used in housing to insulate a house. Foam board insulation, I cut it down to size. Foam board is fairly easy to cut with whatever you call those little knives versus having to use a saw to cut down OSB. And then I wrapped that with a tarp. And then on top of that, I put a faux plant wall, really pretty faux plant wall for the aesthetics. And the challenge, there's a challenge in installing the skirting at the hitch. So again, the tiny house is on wheels. It is pulled by a truck when it's moved. The tiny house is built on a trailer. So the tiny house is built on that trailer that hitch is attached. So it's not removable. It's always going to be there. Trying to cut around the hitch goes into the house like in a V. And so in trying to cut around that hitch to install the skirting is always a challenge. I thought it was just me the very first time I did it, when I had so much trouble with installing around the hitch. And then I hired a professional to do that. And his work was probably just as not done professionally as mine, which was a lesson to me in that it's just difficult. It wasn't difficult because I didn't know what I was doing or I couldn't cut material properly. It's just difficult, since the professional who does that work all the time did probably a job just as good as mine. So the hitch is just the side that I know there's some small gaps. And so I knew my vulnerabilities, but I felt like the vulnerabilities were small enough that I'd be okay, because everything else was basically shored up. And the area where the vulnerabilities were is where the skunk got in. I wasn't counting on. So in hindsight, the way she found that is because she was coming from the left side of the house. That's where the vulnerabilities are. So her direct path to the house was on the side with the vulnerabilities. And so that was her target. And so she hit the target, found the vulnerabilities, and she was in. And so now I want to talk about the lessons learned from that, because I went through a series of emotions in dealing with this skunk and the winterization. And once I started thinking about it, I realized like I said, there were some life lessons in it for me. I'm going to answer this question. So AX Fuller is asking, with the installation of OSB, do you still need to go in and winterize? I just got my tiny. So the OSB for the skirting is the winterization. That is you're putting the OSB around between the bottom of the house and the ground as the insulation, as the winterization. What you're doing basically is trying to hold, during the wintertime, you're trying to hold as much heat under the house as possible, as well as keep things out. And so that is the winterization if you install the OSB. And I actually have a winterization video. I might have two that I will link. I'm making a note right now that I will link. And congratulations to you on your tiny. That I will link in the video description that talks about winterization and what the process is and why. So, like I said, with going through this process, there were some lessons in there. And so we're starting the lesson with vulnerability. So and I've got some notes, so y'all bear with me. Y'all know I gotta talk from my notes. My intention was good. You're very welcome. I worked through sealing off the house. It was beautiful. The skunk was able to hit my vulnerability in a place that I knew existed, but I thought if I think about it, I thought it was minor in the bigger picture. And sometimes we have vulnerabilities that we know we have. Let's talk about those first. We'll have vulnerabilities that we know we have, but we bury them. We're not dealing with them, but we bury them. And we think they're safe because they're buried. Sometimes there are vulnerabilities that you have that you don't even know exist. So there are two options there. And if I think about my vulnerabilities in the winterization of the house, I felt like the bigger picture was everything was covered. And so I was safe. Well, welcome back. And I also felt like where the gaps were, there were enough layers that would keep me safe, would keep those vulnerabilities protected. I knew there were some gaps. I felt like the the layers would keep it protected. The bearing of the gaps. I felt like what was on top of that, if we think about personal vulnerabilities, I thought I was safe. Y'all gotta hold on. I got my door open. It's hot in here. Hold on. All right, sorry. So I hate air condition. So I have my AC unit on and the door open because I prefer to hear outside. And so for right now, the AC wins because it got warm in here. Um, so if we're thinking about vulnerabilities, you think your vulnerabilities are buried and you got stuff over top of it protecting it, which means sometimes it looks like it's secure, sometimes it looks like it's sealed, sometimes it might even feel like it's healed because you got it buried, but it's not secure. And those gaps can be emotional, spiritual, gaps in our routine, our relationships, our boundaries, or in my case, it was a physical gap. So the first thing is recognizing that we all have gaps. We all have vulnerabilities. That's the first thing. And acknowledging that. Sometimes it's if it's not a vulnerability that you're aware of, sometimes you're focused on all the other things and not aware of yourself as a whole. So you're presenting one way, but within you got some vulnerabilities that you may or may not be aware of. If I think about the wrapping, it was beautiful. I'd shared all of the pictures. It was beautiful. It was presenting complete, done, but it wasn't. So that's the first thing. We have to acknowledge that we have gaps, we have vulnerabilities. And so that's the first lesson. The second lesson is the second lesson came from what I did next. So I really didn't want to deal with that skunk at all. I did not want to. Oh, thank you, Bridget. I did not want to deal with the skunk at all. Initially, I was hoping she'd just leave, but I really knew that wasn't the case. It wasn't going to be the case because she had taken her little babies underneath there. So I knew it was comfortable. It was dark. Skunks like darkness. It was cool. She was safe. She and her babies were safe. So at first I was like, I don't want to do anything. There was one afternoon I knew I should be outside working on a solution. And I laid around in the bed all day. It was Sunday. No, Friday. Y'all know. I can't remember. But I just laid around in the bed and I kept saying to myself, you could be outside working on a solution, and I really just didn't even feel like it. So my first reaction actually was resistance. I was irritated and I went into resistance, laid around. Then when I did go into a solution. The only side I opened initially was the side at the hitch. I felt like I was going to try to make her go back out the same way she came back in. And so I spent a couple of days in that mode. And what I was doing, so my another thing I shared was, so to get professionals to come out and deal with it started at $800, and that $800 was just the assessment for them to pull a permit, come out and do an assessment, put out some cameras, and do the assessment. I'm like, I don't need an assessment. I already know where she is. And then it went up from there, $800 to $2,500, because then they do their assessment. They gotta put down traps. They charge you per trap. And my question was, so it's a mother, at least 3 babies. If you trap the mama, you're not gonna get the baby, so the baby's gonna have to die under the house, which, and because I knew they couldn't get up underneath there. So it was like, for $800 to $2,500, the solution wasn't sounding good, and the $800 to $2,500 wasn't sounding good anyway. So I went into home remedy mode, and so I started using foggers, pest control foggers. I wasn't trying to kill her, but I was trying to make her uncomfortable. Skunks don't like citrus smells. There was nothing I could find to spray citrus. The only thing I found to spray some citrus was some Pledge. I sprayed Pledge. Don't judge me. Mothballs. I put out some mothballs. I threw some mothballs underneath there. There's some skunk repellent, but the skunk repellent apparently doesn't work, because I put down the skunk repellent before she even got under the house, because I knew she was hanging around. I'd smelled her several times. But I thought she was just hanging around, like on the exterior, not knowing she was plotting. And so I did that for a couple of days. And the Friday I was sitting out there going through all of that, I was sitting on the I was sitting out in the front yard, and I'm expecting her to come out on this left side of the house the way she came in from the hitch. And I hear pop, and the pop was behind me on the right side of the house. And I go out and look, and there she is. So on the exterior of the right side, there's no way to get in the way I did the work on that side. There was no way to get in from the exterior. But if something was underneath it, there was a way to push out. And so she was already underneath the house. She pushed out. So the pop I heard was one of the things. She pushed it up, and it popped. And the most hilarious part is that I couldn't even be mad at her. She was standing there for a second with her nose up in the air, like getting some fresh air, like she was breathing, like, I need some fresh air, because the assault was working. She came out to get some fresh air, and then she went right back underneath. And I was saying, bitch. But I had to laugh. She came out, got some air, and she went back in to take care of her and her babies. So it was hilarious, but I was still angry. But then I recognized, in my place of resistance, I recognized that my mode of operation of trying to force her out on that one side wasn't going to work. And it took me a day to really settle with, you're going to have to undo all of this work. My resistance. I put a lot of effort into going into putting that work together the first time. And I didn't want to undo it. I have finally, the resistance, I have finally checked that off of the to-do box, the to-do list. And I didn't want to undo it. For me, it felt like going backward. But we all know sometimes you got to go backward. You got to take some steps backward to move forward. So in my resistance, I sat with that for a little while because I was like, I want her to come back out the way she came versus me undoing all of this work. I don't want to put that effort in. And then she wasn't doing it, and we were going to have a standoff. Everything I read said, if you decide to just leave them, once the babies get older, they'll probably leave at the end of the summer on their own, and they'll probably leave as the skunks get older. So that was like probably end of summer. We are early June, so I could live with some skunks if I wanted to keep standing in my resistance. And if I take that to vulnerabilities and stepping backward to step forward, oftentimes resistance is the first reaction. That's our first reaction. For so many things, to resist or to feel protective of what you've already built. Even when it's not really working well, you're protective of something that's established. Even deep down, when you've got some things that you need to fix, you need to work on, absolutely, you resist it because on the outside it looks okay. I don't want to undo everything that I've done. Resistance is common. And so I had to get past my resistance and undo all of the work that I had done. And I had to sit with that. And then I did it. And from there, I went into, at this point now, undoing it, especially in this situation with the skunk, meant she wasn't comfortable anymore. I had exposed her. And then I went back to the pest control spray bombs. I even used my water hose because now it's all the way open. So my water hose, the jet stream, I was able to, the length of the house, all of the areas, use my hose to force water in there. And that's how she left. And probably the only reason she left, because she was fully uncomfortable. And I didn't see her leave. I still wasn't 100% sure she left, but I did know if she could have been being quiet. I'm pretty sure if she was still there as I kept doing that, because it was like a couple of days that I did that, and then I went back and did the water. Somewhere in between, then she left. Exactly. I wasn't 100% sure she was gone. I did know if I had still been assaulting her, because she would have taken that as an assault. She would have sprayed. And I also know the babies would have made noise if they were still there. So I, at some point, could safely assume that they were gone, that she was gone. I was also willing to take an L. Like if the babies were left, but she was gone, and I closed it, because now I got to work on closing it back up. I knew that they were small. If they ended up dying underneath there, it would smell, but it wouldn't smell forever. It wouldn't smell as bad as a big mother skunk. But I also felt like they would make some noise. Like if she was gone and they were there, they would get hungry, and I'd heard them making noise on that Friday evening before she popped her head out. So then it was done. She was gone. So now I have to work back on, absolutely. Now I have to work on reinforcing what's been exposed. And this is really the part where I feel like where somebody just said that Fantasia says sometimes you got to lose to win again. Or as I said, sometimes you got to step backward to move forward. And there are lessons if you're doing it right, if you're paying attention, especially like in vulnerabilities, as if we're taking this to our personal life lessons. And lesson number 3, what's exposed can be reinforced. So if it is a vulnerability that is exposed, then you can do the work to fix that, to heal that, and then move forward, and you're better for it. And so in my situation, in this dealing with the skunk, I knew I needed to step back and do it better. I couldn't go back with the same exact setup because that setup had vulnerabilities. She had already shown me that she could compromise the exterior. So I needed to be better. The wrapping needed to be better. So that forced me to research. I found some little garden fences, the little fencing that you just stick down in the ground that has the little spikes in it, and purchased that and have wrapped the entire house with that. So skunks dig down. And so the vulnerabilities were mostly at the bottom level. She was able to get under. And so with that little fencing all around, it cannot be dug underneath. And at this point, I feel like if something is able to dig underneath there, we just need to I just need to put them on the lease at this point because hola, hey Mary, hey Tracy. So I installed that all the way around. It wasn't as expensive as $800. It was nowhere near as expensive as $800. It was some additional money, but now it is shown me that my exterior is secure. It is closing up the vulnerabilities that were exposed, that I was just trying to hide, that I was just trying to camouflage with the faux plants. The effort, the money, the effort in putting it down now shows me at 100% I'm good. There were still some gaps at the top that I was able to screw the fencing into the side of the house. So now it's secure at the bottom and it's secure at the top. The funny part is another funny part, and this is kind of a bonus lesson learned. I was standing outside. I went and got my neighbor, which is funny for me to say because y'all know I haven't had neighbors and I actually like my neighbor. Went and got my neighbor and we were walking around. It was Monday, maybe about 8:30. It wasn't completely dark yet. And so I'd shown her the work that I'd done and where I had identified some gaps that I still needed to work on. And she and I talked about what we thought the best solution was for closing up those gaps. And so we got a plan. My plan was I had been out working all day getting that fencing down. My plan was to get up in the morning, go to Lowe's, get the supplies to finish it off and wrap it up on Tuesday. And as she and I are standing out in the yard talking, who starts coming across the yard but the skunk? And she's headed toward my house again. And the thing that's throwing her off, so there's a house beside us, that has been empty since I moved here. And somebody is apparently moving in it now. And that is where I'm assuming that's always where she's coming from. So I'm assuming she's been living over there. Now that somebody's moving over there, they are disturbing her. And so Monday afternoon, they were at the house starting to move stuff in. So I'm guessing she left my place, went back over there. They're moving in. So now she's got to hunt out a new place. So we're standing out there talking about what I'm going to do in the morning. And she starts coming across the yard. So we have to scare her off. And now I realize I can't wait until tomorrow. So what is the saying? Never put off to date. No, never put off to tomorrow what can be done today. That's exactly what the hell I had to do. So I was outside with a flashlight in the dark, closing up all the open spots, at least temporarily, so that between nightfall and morning, she couldn't get in those open spots. I knew all my vulnerabilities at that point, and I was handling them. So that piece was funny. It was like an additional lesson learned that she came across, and she was like, "Oh, so you still got some open spots that you procrastinating on. Let me see if I can help you with this." And it was like, "No, absolutely not. I'm not dealing with you anymore." So that was a bonus lesson. But the third and final lesson, that, as I was just speaking about, was once you identify your vulnerabilities, once your vulnerabilities are exposed, they can be reinforced. They can be fixed. You can, in my case, I needed to do some research to figure out a better solution to reinforce my vulnerabilities when it is vulnerabilities that we're dealing with personally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is. There's work that can be done to heal that, to reinforce that, to shore up our defenses, for lack of a better word. So as I've had to look at this, had I not been forced into reevaluating this, so she shows up. Exactly, WLJ. I had done all this work. If she had gotten in there after I had done the work a second time, this story would be going a lot different. But had I not stepped away from the resistance, because I was trying to really hold off on not taking everything down, had I not moved out of resistance into how do I fix this? What are my next steps? And then really reevaluated what needed to be done to be better, because my intention was to be the same. Just open this up on this one side, run her out, and then close up that one side. I would have had the same exterior with the same vulnerabilities. Maybe I would have tried to fix that one side, but I wouldn't have put in the effort that I put into it to make it so much better. And so that is that is for us in our vulnerabilities, in our challenges, in our weak spots, in our places that we know need healing. The reevaluation, moving from resistance. You've identified, you know that challenge is there, or it's been called out. Are you going to just sit in resistance and try to ignore it for something else later on to come back and expose it again, or touch on it again and make it even sore? Or are you going to address it? Are you going to move from resistance to work on doing the healing, on doing the reinforcement that's necessary to be better? And if we think about that, it's really moving into reinforcing something for a personal vulnerability, a personal weakness, a personal hurt that needs to be healed. That's really moving in love for ourselves, because we're making ourselves stronger for the next time. We're making ourselves stronger overall, whatever it is, emotionally, physically. In my case, physically, I've made my home, my the winterization, the barrier, I've made it stronger for the next time. I also learned something, like those little the fencing. Every time that I didn't have OSB, because OSB is strong and goes down into the ground more, can't be permeated. That was probably the word I was trying to say. permeated like foam board. Foam board could be kind of pushed around. Foam board is excellent for the winterization part, is keeping the cold air and weather out, but it's not as great for dealing with animals. So I had to go back into, I should have been using really that fencing all along. I didn't know about it. Now I can recommend it to other people. So I learned something in the process. And now I don't have to worry. I can see her coming, and I don't have to pay attention to where she is or what she's doing, because I know she can't get in. In some of the spaces, it's a couple of fences. It's overlapping, like it's not just one fence. They overlap, so they can be stronger. It was a lot of effort that went into being better for this second presentation, so that it's not just a facade of strength, or not just a facade of completion, or not just a facade of it's okay in doing its job. And that facade can be us. We're presenting one way on the exterior when we know there's some things on the interior that we need to address, that we need to shore up, that we need to reinforce, that we need to strengthen. And Catherine says, once we get the lesson, we won't have to repeat the course. Exactly, if we get the lesson, because sometimes we are hell-bent on repeating the lesson because we don't get it the first time. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. So in this, and just like Bridget just said, it wasn't really just about the skunk, or it wasn't about the skunk per se. It was about her in a lot of ways. But as I sat with this, I realized it was also about the reminder to protect my peace. Like I said, I would, she's been around the house several times. I've had to wake up. I've woken up out of deep sleep because she sprays for some reason. I don't know what's bothering her that she decides to spray, but sometimes at night she'll spray, and the spray comes in the house through the AC unit. So I know she's out there. And a lot of times I'll get up and look out the windows trying to see where she is, just in case, just to make sure she's not messing with anything around the house. Because again, I knew I had some vulnerabilities. Now I don't have to do that because I protected my home. And as such, I've protected my peace. I can sleep through the night knowing even if she's around, she can't get underneath the house. And I protected my energy. I protected my sleep. I protected my peace, my energy, my sleep, and my house. And so it is the physical manifestation of the protection as far as the house, and also my personal peace in how I can relax and not have to worry about this going forward. And so that to me is and when I again, the intentional living is like when you're focused on the doing things the right way, the intentionality of moving the right way. Me being in resistance and kind of trying to ignore it and hope it went away wasn't intentionality, isn't true intentionality. And so there were, again, the lessons that I learned from this skunk, from all of this, is vulnerability, resistance, and then intentionality. And those are lessons that we all, myself included, can apply within our lives. And little Pepe Le Pew, or I got it, Pepe was a dude. what's a name for her? Taught me, taught us. Evelyn says I shared the course. She taught us. Um, Catherine is saying maybe put some ginger and lemon grass plants around your house. I don't know if that would disturb her. I forgot. Now I was just getting ready to say something that they said disturbs them. Cayenne pepper, cayenne pepper, vinegar, and ammonia are the things. They they smell strong, and they have the nerve to be disturbed by strong smells. Like, make it make sense. You all disturb folks with your strong smells, but you have the nerve to be disturbed by other strong smells. I opted not to do the cayenne pepper. Like, I figured by the time, we've got all these storms and stuff, by the time you put that down and have to keep doing it, that's an effort and futility. And the skunk repellent, that was the same thing. I'd put it down and then I have to go back and put it out because it's rained or whatever. Right now, I'm waiting for the mothballs to go away because they're strong. But I don't feel the need to do the extras because I know the foundation is secure. I did add, there's some sonar, again, the research, there's some sonar type things that you can put in the yard that have different levels of sonar that impact animals, and depending on what type of animal it is, to keep them away. It has flashing light. So it's out when, they're out. Skunks are nocturnal. When they're out, the light flashes at them because it's also motion detected and scares them away. So I install 4 of them for all 4 sides of the house, and I feel like I'm good. So her name is Pritzy LePew. If something gets past that, then we got a whole different conversation because they're on some different things. But those are my lessons that I learned, that I felt like it was a good lesson to share with you all. And kind of the takeaways are, what vulnerabilities in your life are you aware of, that that you've buried, that exist. And again, physical, emotional, spiritual, all those things, people, places, and things, as I say, that you're not dealing with, that you probably need to, but you just don't want to. So you're in the resistant stage. Consider that if you stop resisting, there might be something there that you can actually learn, something that is there to teach you, something that is there to guide you. When I got out of resistance, then I learned something that helps me in the long run, versus always having to be concerned that something can breach the exterior of the house. Or it might be something that you just really needed to tear down and rebuild. I wanted to go with the same old because I put a lot of effort into putting that up. And that wasn't the best method. And so I needed to tear it down to build it back up. Tear it down to build it back up. So that seems like a lot of effort, time, energy, all the things, but I'm better for it. Very welcome, Natasha. I'm so much better for it because I took that lesson and did something with it, even as much as I didn't want to. And then on top of that, even though it was physical work that I was resisting, as I thought about it, I was able to see the life lessons in there for me. Because I always say to y'all, God is always talking. You just got to be paying attention. You just got to be listening instead of just moving through in autopilot. God is always giving you some lessons, showing you some things, showing you in other ways things that you need to think about and apply in other situations of life. Absolutely. I'm better for it. And that's the lesson. That's the lesson there. The other lessons for me was around the resistance. Because that's sometimes my go-to, to go into resistance. And that's not always good. Sometimes it's needed. But sometimes instead of going into straight resistance, it's better to just go into a pause to figure out what you should be doing versus resistance. There's a big difference in pausing to reassess in resisting. Pausing, you're not taking action one way or the other. You're assessing the situation. Resistance, I wasn't taking action at all, but I wasn't doing anything but taking a nap and being in my feelings about why I had to redo work I had just done, and feeling some type of way about the fact that I just checked this off. I'm trying to get to the bottom of my to-do list, and now I got to redo this work, but I'm better for it. So for me, part of that lesson is to reconsider resistance and think about the why of resistance. Am I just being stubborn, or is it something that I need to approach with less stubbornness? And the answer probably is going to be yes. Catherine is asking, are the babies gone too? I am assuming that they are. I haven't heard them and I haven't smelled them. And I also feel like if the babies were under here, like when she was heading back this way on Monday when we were standing out talking, if her babies were under the house, she would have fought me or fought to get underneath to get to them. Animals like us are protective of their I'm glad. All of us are protective of our kids. So she would have put more effort into, and still would be putting effort into, trying to get underneath the house if they were still here. And I would have heard them crying between now and then. Between then and now. I said that backward. That's what I got for y'all today. Some life lessons from Pritzy LePew. And I know so much more about skunks. I've been learning about skunks for the last few years because I dealt with some skunks over at the other place too. They didn't get under the house, but they were around. I think the reason they probably didn't get under the house before, well, one, I had OSB, and two, because I had the cats around, and the cats didn't play about a lot of stuff. So I think that they didn't have an option. My interaction with the skunk out there became more personal when there were some kittens. And I really think the skunk had sprayed the kittens, and I ended up trying to defend the kittens against the skunk. I really think the skunk was going after their food and not the kitten. The kitten was just kind of in the way. And so I then learned the lies about tomato juice. I didn't get sprayed. The kittens got sprayed, but I then handled the kittens trying to help them. And so my hands and my clothes, like I just took off my clothes in the outside and threw them away. But my hands smelled like a skunk for weeks. And I learned that tomato juice, that's a lie. The stuff that they sell at PetSmart doesn't work. That's a lie. It just took time for it in washing. Like I was about to wash my hands raw. None of that stuff works, so don't believe that. LT said she was Googling too. Like, I know skunks can spray up to 15 feet. I know I saw a video of a skunk. It was so funny. A skunk was, when they get ready to spray you, they kind of do this little stamping thing with their feet. It's really cute. Which one lady said, now I see why dogs get sprayed all the time. They probably think the skunk is playing with them, because when the skunk stamps its feet, it's kind of like a dog. When a dog bends down and does his little thing with his feet, like he wants you to play with him. That's what a skunk looks like when she's getting ready to spray. It's like a warning, but it looks just like the dog. And so somebody said, now I know why my dog gets sprayed all the time. He probably thinks the skunk is playing with him. What else did I learn? I learned that skunks are nearsighted, which is probably why I didn't get sprayed the first time I was trying to get her when she was carrying a baby. She really couldn't see me well. They can spray up to 15 feet. She really would have gotten me because I was less than 15 feet. And then the other thing was learning that they have an aversion to smells, as smelly as they are. So yeah, that is very welcome. That is what I've learned about some skunks and what my life lessons from the skunks. LT says she was trying to learn the maturity of skunk. Oh, they were going to be there for a while. The thing I read said at least once it cooled down and through the end of summer. And I was like, oh no, we can't do that. That doesn't even sound like I'm trying to coexist, but not at that level. Yes, they're cute and they stink. And right, LT, like that makes so much sense why dogs get sprayed all the time. It's a really cute little stamp, the little thing that they do with their feet to let you know they're getting ready to spray you. And nobody ever taught the dog that they're not playing with you. They are getting ready to spray you. Bonnie says, I will apply them immediately. Now you need to take this on multiple roads. I laughed out loud and I learned deeply. Thank you. I am glad you are better for it. Yes, Evelyn, I took the I took the lesson for all of us. So now you all don't have to deal with it. Now you know. Right. Exactly. Roslyn says, how are you going to stink and be sensitive to pungent smells? It's like you're a walking oxymoron. It's a skunk, a whole walking oxymoron. All right, good people. That's all I got for y'all today. I got some work to do. I am going to be rolling out a workshop very soon. Rolling that out. Got some other stuff I'm working on. We had our community conversation 2 weeks ago. It was great. We're still in our exploration of Black communities. We explored the Freedom, Georgia, the community that is under development in Georgia, and we looked at Soul City, a community that was in process of development in North Carolina, not too far from me. We explored that. And do we have book club this week? No. Do we? Let me see. We do. We have book club this week on Wednesday. So we will gather. We are wrapping up. Absolutely. Secure your borders. Not the U.S. war. We're not talking about that. But yes, we know what you're talking about, Evelyn. We have book club this week, and we are wrapping up the Afro Minimalist Guide to Living with Less. All right. Good to see you, Bridget. I'm glad you all took something from the Skunk's life lessons for me. I'm glad I was able to share it. I was able to see it and share it with you all. All right. Happy Sunday. Happy Father's Day to y'all's folks. I hope everybody has a good week. Patreon community, I will see you all on Wednesday. Have a good week. Be safe, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining. Bridget, thank you for the gift. I appreciate you. Take care. I will talk to you all soon.